Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Dell. If you're new to this channel, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. In today's demonstration, we're going to be talking about the celestial events and the galactical phenomenon that essentially means that planet Earth is at the apex of evolution that leads to higher states of consciousness. So we're also going to be talking about the lunar eclipse and the blood moon of Purim. We're going to be talking about the Devil's Comet, and we're going to be talking about the Shabbat red heifer ritualistic sacrifice that's basically correlated with the solar eclipse, the Antichrist, and the Son of Man. Right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get your notes out for this. It's a lot of stuff we going over because, like I said, the more I keep going down the rabbit hole, the more I keep finding intrinsic information that lines up with prophetic divination. Now, first, we're going to start out with the Devil's Comet. Now, what I found out about the Devil's Comet, that it travels at a velocity at a magnitude of 6.66 as it's going through Aries, which is another nomenclature title for Talum. Talum is also the Lamb. So that's equated to Revelation 6:1. Now I watched the Lamb open one of the seven seals, and one heard four living creatures say with a voice of thunder, which is connected to the seven thunders. And I looked, behold, a white horse. Now the white horse is also synonymous to this depiction when you're talking about Beyonce, right? So now when you look at the flag, that is connected to the three-body law. That is also connected to the casualty of war when you see the yellow tassel. The yellow tassel that basically subjugated humanity by taking them out of their sovereign capacity for the last 400 years by putting them under ecclesiastical law. So the white horse is a signification of what is to come, right? So you also got to understand that the Devil's Comet is also the size, three times the size of Mount Everest, right? So one thing you got to understand about the Devil's Comet, one thing that I found very strange is that the Devil's Comet was discovered by Jean Louis Pons in 1812. In 1812, that was the time when the United States was at war. And also in 1812, you had the New Madrid earthquake, which is basically going to be the apex of the energy in the center point of where the solar eclipse is going to be taking place. So the same place where you had the 1812 New Madrid earthquake in 1812 is going to be the same spot where the solar eclipse is going to be at. That is going to be the apex of the velocity and the energy that's going to be projected by the solar eclipse. So it's not a coincidence that during that time period of 1812, that's when the Devil's Comet was also discovered, right? One thing about this video, as far as like the numerical components and the sequence and the synchronicity, everything lines up. Everything is all about divine alignment, because you got to understand something. Numbers is the language of the universe. Mathematics is the language of the universe. It's the language of the Most High. That's how you show, what's actually going to be taking place on the planet by way of the numerical sequence. There's a new show on Netflix. I think it's called the three-body law or something, or the three-body problem. Watch that show because it's talking about the numerical sequence as it's connected to an extrapolation of events that takes place on the planet by way of the numerical sequence, right? So now, as we get into the Devil's Comet, now, one thing you got to understand is that this is all equated to William Arthur Philip Lewis, right? Who was also the Prince of Wales. So when you look at his nomenclature title, his full name is actually Arthur Philip Lewis, right? This is all esoterically connected to certain movies. Now, there's a movie that came out on March 15th called Arthur and the King. Everything's going to come full circle. Now, March 15 is also the Ides of March, which is basically associated with misfortune and doom, right? And the Ides of March, that date is also connected to the Simpsons episode that they had. So you see 315, and then you also, this is also esoterically connected to the last video I put out, because as I told you, the solar eclipse goes through 8 cities called Nineveh. And then you go to Jonah 3:4. It says in 40 days, Nineveh shall be overthrown, because Nineveh is a esoteric codex for the word America. It's basically a codex for the word America. So Nineveh shall be overthrown in 40 days. And from 40 days from the April 8th solar eclipse, you get May 18th, right? So 518 on there. And then at the top, you got the 144,000. When you're talking about the cosmic convergence, as you have these new energies that's coming in from the solar eclipses, that activates the elect, right? So it's not a coincidence that this movie came out on March 15th, Arthur the King, then the Prince of Wales, his name is Arthur, right? That's also esoterically connected to the Ides of March, associated with misfortune and doom, right? And then on the Simpsons episode, you got 315, which is connected to the Ides of March. And it's also connected to the 40 days after Nineveh is overthrown, which is 518. So that's why I said everything is, esoterically connected. So you got to watch the last video I put out about the solar eclipse, because it's connected to this video. Because every video I put out is basically like a esoteric puzzle piece, right? It's an esoteric puzzle piece that basically puts everything in alignment to where you can see beyond the veil. Now I'm going to play this video, and it's going to be talking about how, the great majority of the so-called British and the royal family is also metaphysically connected to the lunar eclipses, the solar eclipses, and all these celestial events that's taking place on the planet, happening now and also happening back in the past. So I'm going to play this video for you guys.
The Devil Comet may be visible on April 8th during the solar eclipse. Here's what's scary. When it comes to the British Crown, major life events center on comets and eclipses. A few days after Queen Elizabeth II died and was replaced by her son as the new King of England, a meteor flew across the skies of the UK. The royal family's linked to it.
Now, what he said about Queen Elizabeth dying, that is connected to the 7-year tribulation period that I put out almost like a year and a half ago, around the time that the Queen died, because I break down the coronation process for the resurgence of the so-called Antichrist. So you got to watch that 7-year tribulation period video that I put out maybe like a year ago. So you got to go to the videos, and you go to the video tab, and you just scroll down.
Include the births of King Charles. A meteor flew across the skies of the UK. The royal family's linked to eclipses include the births of King Charles III, Prince William, and Princess Kate. Princess Diana was not born during an eclipse. She married Prince Charles the evening before a solar eclipse in Leo. Leo is literally the sign of royalty and is known for attracting attention. News of Prince Charles' extramarital affair with Camilla hit in November 1992, and by December 9, 1992, they announced their separation. And Princess Diana's tragic car crash that killed her driver and her partner Dodi Al-Fayed occurred on the evening before a solar eclipse in Virgo in 1997. Meghan Markle was born within a few days of a solar eclipse in Leo, a couple of days after the wedding of Princess Diana and Prince Charles. She also gave birth to one of the Queen's great-grandchildren, Lilibet, on June 4th, 2021, right in between the two eclipses. On January 8th, 2020, it was announced.
Matter of fact, that solar eclipse that he was talking about in the video, being born in 2017 in Leo, now that solar eclipse is exactly 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days from April 8th, 2024, right? So these are all basically the signs of Revelation 12. All this stuff is esoterically connected, right? When you understand the mythology of the Bible, if you're reading it correctly and things of that nature. Now, we're going to also get into the fact that, you know, when you want to find the truth, you got to connect historical context, biblical context. You got to use gematria. You got to use science and metaphysics. You got to use a multitude of schools of thoughts in order to understand everything intuitively and collaborate it with the occult knowledge and the esoteric knowledge, right? So now the Devil's Comet, when I did the Gematria Codex for it, it had a numerical value of 1016, right? So it has a numerical value of 1016. So 10 Days of Darkness, 1016. Charles Philip Arthur George, 1016, right? So now what you got to understand is that this is all connected by way of the binary code system of the simulation, because the simulation works in tandem with the energy grid. The energy grid is being manipulated by the supercomputer on the dark side of the moon, which controls the simulation by way of the sequence of numbers. So that's why certain things take place as far as, you know, the numerical components and the numerical values of whatever's taking place on the planet is connected to, you know what I'm saying, prophecy. So the Gematria code for Devil's Comet is lined up with 10 Days of Darkness, because we already went through that as I was going through the past videos when they said that the World Economic Forum that said it was inevitable that there was going to be a cyber attack on the geographical landmass of America, right? And that cyber attack is basically equated to the fact that the grid goes down. That's when you're going to have the whole simulation shut down. So you got to watch that new show on Netflix. It shows you the glitching. You have an interface transition in the atmosphere where you have the glitching of the simulation. The sky started to glitch in and out. The stars was glitching. So 10 Days of Darkness is upon us, and it's also connected to the Devil's Comet, right? Now, this is also esoterically connected to the blood moon of Purim, which is going to be on March 25th, right? And March 25th, during that time, you also going to have a lunar eclipse. So this blood moon in the lunar eclipse is basically a hybrid phenomenon that's basically the symbology of an omen that's going to be taking place. So that's also at the same time you're going to see the Devil Comet be visible to the naked eye for humanity. So now you got to understand something. One thing you got to understand about the Devil's Comet, you know, they say that it's basically the embodiment of the color spectrum of a green glow. One thing you got to understand when you understand and understand Dr. Malachi Z. York's teachings, he tells you that the green light is a form of intelligence because it's basically the embodiment of antimatter, electricity, thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, electromagnetic radiation, and resonant energy through the law of thermodynamics, through the conservation of energy. So that conservation of energy has a transmutation process by going from heat to electricity, and that electricity sparks up consciousness in the atmosphere that causes nitroids, which are basically Holy Ghost particles. So that green Ethereum energy that's coming in, that they say that's the Devil's Comet, is actually bringing a certain intelligence to the planet to galvanize and spark up the 144,000 as you have the resurgence of the Son of Man, as you also have the resurgence of the so-called Antichrist that's coming from the plutocracy, right? Because as I was telling you before, there are two different timelines that's going on the planet right now, right? And I'm going to show you the dichotomy of that as we get through the video, right? So now, when you understand the ancient order, the ancient and the mystic order of Melchizedek, Melchizedek is another nomenclature title for Tahuti or Thoth, right? Or Zahuti when you understand ancient Kemet. Now, this is all connected to the Sufi order of the Sons of Green Light. Anything that deals with green is a high form of intelligence, right? Because it's connected to the heart chakra. The heart chakra works in tandem with the green etheric energy, right? Because it sparks the soul of man, because the heart is the seat of the soul. When you understand Kemetic science, the heart is the seat of the soul, right? So that's why the harmonic convergence is going to be based on the fact that only words from the heart can reach the heart. So when you speak truth, that manipulates everything in a simulation. That manipulates the ethers. That manipulates the ethers to where it basically dismantles everything that's connected to the three-dimensional paradigm, right? So there's going to be a time period during all these celestial events, during all these this galactical phenomena and all these anomalies that's taking place on the planet. This is going to be a process of activation also. Now, I told people, you know what I'm saying, it's one of those things you don't want to look at the solar eclipse, but you should also, during this time period, you should be meditating and fasting, right? To where you can absorb these new energies that's coming in for the new beginnings, for the hereafter, right? For the cosmic and harmonic convergence. So one thing you got to understand, you know, this is also connected to the resurgence of the so-called Antichrist, which is basically going to reveal himself during the time of an economic crash, right? So that's going to be the precursor to many different things as far as like the grid shutting down and things of that nature. So we all know that the eclipse and the blood moon working in synergy is basically the signification of the impending judgment on a certain geographical landmass and a judgment on a certain demographic of people. Is the coming Great American Eclipse a prophetic warning from God, right? It's a prophetic warning from the Most High, not God, because there's a delineation between God and the Most High. We're going to break that down as we going through the video because it's connected to the Shabbat red heifer ritualistic sacrifice, right? So the judgment in itself is connected to the syndicus. The syndicus is basically another title for the word locust, and they occur every in a 17-year cycle, right? So now you also got to understand, like I said, the universe is mathematical. So you have the Horn Devil Comet visible in the sky for the first time in 71 years, can be seen during the April eclipse. Now you got the number 71 right there. This spring in Indiana, we'll see the emergence of the 17-year syndicus, right? So syndicus is another form, another title for locust, just like I said. So the return of the 17-year cycle syndicus sign is a sign of one that returns to the spiritual truth, has been buried and hidden from the masses for 1,700 years. So it's basically the embodiment of the fact that there's going to be a new truth that's coming to the planet that's been hidden from humanity for 1,700 years because we've been subjugated under ecclesiastical law. We've been subjugated by the religion. We've been subjugated by the socio-political aspect of civics, right? So now when you look at the number 17 and 71, the 17 connected to the syndicas and the 71 connected to the devil comet. Now, this is also esoterically connected because it's basically a mirror flip. It's a mirroring of numbers because that's basically telling you that the dimensions are basically starting to collide together, right? So it's not a coincidence that you also, when you add the numbers up, you get the number 88, right? So the 8, because it's like I said, 2024 is the 8 year, and the 8 is the embodiment of building and destroying. So you got these new energies coming in. You're going to have the seismic activity on the planet being activated. Because as I told you before, the volcanoes are basically the pimples of planet Earth. So when you have the seismic activity on the planet, as you have the new energies that's coming in, that's causing the activation to the Schumann resonance, right? By going from a certain megahertz frequency to a certain intrinsic megahertz frequency that activates gamma radiation. So the volcano in Iceland erupting for the fourth time in 3 months, spinning plumes of lava skywards, right? Then you also have the sleeping seduction zone could awaken and form a new ring of fire that envelops the Atlantic Ocean. So like I said, all this stuff is esoterically connected because all this stuff is connected to the Antichrist hybrid solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, right? So this is also, you know what I'm saying, like I said, this is all connected to the embodiment of judgment, which basically correlates to the red heifer, right? Now, we're going to get into, for those who don't understand the mythology of the red heifer and how it correlates to prophecy, we're going to break it all down today. You know what I'm saying? So according to Jewish tradition, there's only been 10 red heifers in human history. So it's basically talking about the ushering of the Messianic era. So it's also talking about, you know, to bring about this false Messianic figure, because anything that comes from the Canaanite demographic is actually the false light. Anything that's dealing with the false light is connected to a form of technology and is connected to a form of deception, right? So I'm going to play a few videos here that's going to give a breakdown of the mythology of the red heifer prophecy, right?
The rumors of wars. The recent unprecedented attack on Israel has many questioning whether or not we're headed for World War III or even the end times. What I'm about to show you may be the fulfillment of a strange and ancient prophecy, the appearance of an animal long foretold. For Jews and Christians who study eschatology, or the parts of theology concerned with death and judgment, they see things aligning. One such end-time event that is supposed to take place is the rebuilding of the temple. The first iteration of the temple was built by King Solomon in 990 BC. According to Jewish tradition, Solomon was given exact specifications and a plan layout by God. It housed the Ark of the Covenant, an ornate chest housing the original 10 Commandments and other Jewish artifacts. However, the Ark was more than just a container.
Now, remember I told you that the Ark of the Covenant is basically, when you look at the relics on top of it, those are basically the embodiment of the cherubim. And the Ark of the Covenant right now is in Antarctica, actually.
It was also a weapon of unspeakable power. The temple was designed to house and protect the Ark, but this design has been destroyed twice before, the second temple being burned at the hands of an enemy nation. And it's rumored that the Ark was taken. Numerous legends claim that the object, which housed the very Spirit of God on earth, was brought to different areas depending on which myth you follow. But to Jews, the third construction of the temple will precede the appearance of their Messiah. Christians believe that the Jews will be deceived in this, and that their messianic figure will be none other than the Antichrist. The book of Revelation tells us that this embodiment of Satan posing as a hero will enter the newly built sanctuary and commit an abomination, a ritual reveling in himself, and it is said that he will then declare himself God. But are we getting ahead of ourselves? The foundation where the former temple was built, the Temple Mount, has been under Muslim control for centuries, and they have built a mosque over its foundation. However, the Jewish people have been laying out plans for the third temple's construction. A special priestly class was responsible for sacrifices at the temple in ancient times and were tasked with watching over the ark and were the only ones permitted to enter the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctum, the inner chamber of the temple complex. In 2009, a school was built to train priests and Levites in the care of the rebuilt temple. And in 2010, uncut stones were collected from the Dead Sea for the construction of its altar. But beyond all of these preparations and what some might call wishful thinking, a strange sign has just emerged. Before past constructions of the temple could commence, a ritual had to be performed. The sacrifice of an extremely rare red heifer without blemish to consecrate the location before building could start. Miraculously, in 2018, for the first time in 2,000 years, a red heifer was born. An extensive examination process was undertaken, and the priest determined that the rare animal was, in fact, blemish-free. It seems the only thing standing in the way at this point is the mosque, and there hasn't been a strong enough justification for removing or destroying it until maybe now. Thousands have been killed so far in this Israel-Gaza conflict. Among the dead in Israel are stories, horrific ones, of children being tortured and killed at the hands of Hamas and its forced Netanyahu in Israel's hand in declaring war on Muslim Hamas and occupied Gaza. And more strangeness is occurring in and around the Dead Sea. Its namesake was given to it in ancient times. It was thought to be a cursed place. But modern science explains that it's its saline content that prevents any life from inhabiting its waters. But recently something was spotted there that had one Israeli photojournalist calling it the eighth wonder of the world. He witnessed and photographed fish thriving in the sea's sinkholes that have never been seen before. A great multitude of fish was foretold in the book of Ezekiel. And we have the manifestation of another prophetic event. The Euphrates River is drying up. This is prophesied in Revelation as initiating a release of demonic entities that were trapped there, who will perform signs and bring together an unholy army. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean spirits like frogs, for they are demonic spirits, performing signs, who go abroad to the kings of the whole world to assemble them for the battle on the great day of God the Almighty. The Israelites have always been relying on signs, some type of indication that these end times are coming, that their messianic figure will show himself.
He's going to show himself. But like I said, it's got to be one of those things where you got to be able to see beyond the veil and see beyond the deception. You got to see beyond the deception. Now, one thing I found out about the red heifer ritualistic sacrifice is basically a Talmudic tradition, right? And it's basically connected to the worship of Moloch, who was also Baal, right? So now you got to understand something. Anything that deals with sacrificial processes, anything that deals with, the worship of Moloch, the worship of Baal, is basically a Canaanite ritual, right? Because it's basically in exchange for fortune. So this ritualistic sacrifice is another way to bring about the resurgence of this Antichrist to save the system, to give them extra dominion on the planet because their time is running out, right? So now I need you to understand something. When they said they're making their sacrifice to God, you need to understand when you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, God is a pagan term because God is equated to the word Gad, and Gad is a Babylonian deity, right? And it's basically a Babylonian deity because it's also connected to the fact that Lord and Baal are basically one and the same, God and Gad. So now Baal Gad is the god of fortune, which is equated to Satan. Because when you go to the book of Enoch, the word Gad is the prefix of the word Gandriel. Gandriel is the galactical title for the word Satan. So now it goes right here. Jeremiah 26, how long is there in the hearts of the prophets who prophesies falsehood, even these prophets in deception of their own? Forget my name and dream. So that's why I said there's a diametrical difference between God and the Most High. Stop saying God, because when you say God, you're saying Gad. When you're saying Gad, you're saying Gandrel. When you're saying Gandrel, you're saying Satan. When you're saying Satan, you're saying Baal. When you're saying Baal, you're saying Moloch. Because you got to understand the inception points of where monotheistic religion came from. It came from Greco-Roman culture. Anything that deals with Greco-Roman culture is basically a derivative that came from ancient Babylon, right? So this is all the red heifer ritualistic sacrifice. This is all Babylonian sacrificial worship, right? All from ancient Babylon. So now we're going to get into another video giving you a simplistic synopsis of what actually takes place when you're talking about the red heifer and how the sacrifice actually goes.
According to Mosaic law, burning the ashes of a red heifer is a mandatory act for beginning the temple offering to God.
Like I said, you hear what he said, the temporal offering to God, offering to Satan. Like I said, get out of saying the word God, because a lot of people don't understand the diametrical differences between God with a capital G, with a lowercase g, or God in all caps, right? Once you understand and understand the intuitiveness of those titles and what they mean and why they're spelled that way, that's when you can basically dispel those names and be able to decipher who's who and what's what.
Heifer is a key element in a biblically mandated purification ritual. These ashes are required for purification in a range of situations, including contact with dead bodies. Numbers chapter 19. Now with all the bloodshed
Turn this up if you can't hear it too much. Turn it up if you can't hear it.
On the temple mount down through the centuries, the mount itself must be cleansed before the temple can be built. According to the Torah, Moses prepared the first red heifer, and from that time until the destruction of the temple, only 9 heifers were prepared. There has been no proper red heifer in Israel for the past 2,000 years. The difficulties of finding red heifers anywhere is that they are not only rare, but the animal must meet the requirements as stipulated in the Torah and in the oral Talmud. The 5 main criteria for establishing the proper red heifer for the holy purpose of purification are: it should be completely red with no spot or blemish. Actually, the heifer can have no more than 2 non-red hairs, and the hooves also must be red. It must be a female. Heifers are female. It must never have been used for labor. It must never have been pregnant, and it must be between 3 to 4 years old. In Judaism, this prophecy signals the coming of a time that includes the return of biblical laws of purity, thus allowing for truly holy life. For evangelical Christians, it heralds the end of days, the return of Jesus to earth, and the rapture. This belief has long driven Christian Zionism and Christian lobbying on behalf of Israel. In September 2022, through a joint effort established between a Christian ministry and the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, 5 red heifers from Texas were transported to Jerusalem and now graze at a...
Pause it. One thing you got to understand, he said that they transported the 5 red heifers from Texas to Jerusalem. So if Jerusalem is the real Holy Land, then why ain't you getting the damn red heifers from Jerusalem? They came over to the geographical landmass of America and transported them over to Jerusalem. So that tells you that the true Holy Land is actually in America. So that tells you right there that the Messianic figure, the true Messiah, right, whether it's a man or a woman, they're basically going to come from this geographical landmass in America. They're not going to come from the East. They're going to come from the West, right? We're going to get into that as we get through the video. So like I said, America is the true Holy Land. So why are you getting the red heifers from Texas and then bringing them all the way to damn Jerusalem? If you're really the true chosen people and you at the true chosen land, why don't you already have the red heifers, right? Got to make it make sense. Got to make it make sense, right? I'm gonna play another video because they, you know what I'm saying, because they already setting the tone and the frequency for their false messianic figure. They already got the altars and everything built up. They, you know what I'm saying, because like I said, they're running out of time, so they getting the ball rolling with this whole thing already as you have these celestial events that's taking place.
Massive altar already awaits where the heifers are to be burned. According to some believers, the ceremony needs to be performed right here on the Mount of Olives, looking directly into where the temple once stood. At a secure, undisclosed location are these red heifers, to be precise. Some Jews and Christians believe they're the key to rebuilding the historic Jewish temple in Jerusalem and to beckoning the Messiah. To understand, you have to go back nearly 2,000 years when the ancient Romans destroyed the last temple in the city. To rebuild it, these believers point to the Bible's book of Numbers. It commands the Israelites to sacrifice a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been under a yoke. Only then can the temple rise again. Caring for them on an Israeli settlement in the West Bank is Yitzhak Mamo.
So we have here, after a long research, we find in Texas.
In Texas?
Texas, United States of America.
Texas Red Angus, flying them 7,000 miles to Israel. This is not a publicity stunt.
What do you mean?
Meaning, this is something you take very seriously.
Harry Potter is a good story. The Bible is not story. The Bible is a way of God to...
So they telling you in real time, they put it out in the public domain that they actually doing a Canaanite ritual and a sacrifice. They're telling that, you know, on national television. You know what I'm saying? So all this stuff is, you know, esoterically connected. Now I'm gonna play another video.
Recently, we heard the news that Israeli rabbis imported 5 red heifers from Texas and are eagerly waiting for their arrival.
Again, why are you getting red heifers from the geographical landmass of America in Texas and taking them all the way to Jerusalem? If you're the real chosen people, right, and you're living to the true divine order of the Most High, why are you bringing the red heifers from America over to Jerusalem? If Jerusalem is the real true holy land, you will already have the red heifers. So like I said, the real holy land is in the geographical landmass of America, because once you got to understand about the esoteric historical context of the Bible, most of the cities were over in the geographical landmass of America. The cities over here outdate the numbers. Outdate the cities in years over in the East, right? So what I'm basically saying is that the biblical cities and the names or whatever that you see in the Bible were actually over here first. Then they were basically named after the cities in the East are actually named after the West. So all they did was a bait and switch to basically fit themselves into the prophecy by creating false religion. That's what they did the religion for. They did the religion for to take you out of your sovereign capacity and to basically write themselves into prophecy, right? So that's why you got so many cities over in the geographical landmass of America that have, you know, the same cities that's equated to the cities in the Bible, right? So like I said, if Jerusalem is the true holy land, right? Why are you bringing the red heifers from America to over to the east? Also, when you look at the word Jerusalem, you see the word USA in there also.
And are eagerly waiting for their arrival at the Israeli airport. You might be wondering why we've highlighted this news and why we're taking a keen interest in it. First, let's consider why red heifers are so important for Jewish people in Israel. According to Jewish beliefs, the slaughter of a red heifer just before the rebuilding of the third temple is necessary. They believe that by doing so, their Messiah will come and they will be able to regain their glory. So, the question is, why only a red heifer? When we delve into the research, we find that they believe that if they slaughter and burn the red heifer, and then use its ashes to purify individuals before entering their temple, which they want to build. This raises the question of whether the Jewish community is ready to rebuild their third temple, or if their Messiah has already come. Their religious texts mention that they use these heifers only to present sacrifices to their Messiah. We all know that red heifers are incredibly rare in the world, with only a few born every 1,000 years, and they command prices in the millions of dollars. However, at the same time, Jewish beliefs hold that when a red heifer is born, it signifies the arrival or imminent arrival of their Messiah. Recently,
Yeah, the false Messiah, right? Because we all know that the so-called, who controls every industry on the planet, we talking about a certain demographic, the inception of their genealogical bloodline comes from the bloodline of Canaan, the 11 seeds of Canaan. The 11 seeds of Canaan, you also have the Jebusites. The Jebusites are the ones who did Canaanite rituals to worship Moloch and Baal, right? Which is all based on Babylonian worship. So now, let's get into something. Now, like I said, there's a diametrical difference in the dichotomy between the Messiah and the Most High. The messianic figure or the Son of Man. When you see the word man in the Bible, it is basically unisex because it's basically talking about either a man or a woman, right? The original man and the original woman, right? So the messianic figure will actually be a man or a woman. Like I said, it can be either one, or it can be the cosmic convergence of the 144,000. So the 144,000 can also be the messianic figure, right? The true messianic figure. So you need to understand the difference between the two. Now, the Messiah, they will fight imperialism by speaking truth and love to basically combat the physical war because we living in a spiritual war, right? Now, the messianic figure will also be operating from a place of humility because they don't want to be worshipped. And they will actually propagate cosmic convergence, which is basically the unity conscious aspect of the 144,000. Because I was telling you before, this is all connected to this Simpsons cartoon. Because I told you, 40 days from the April 8th solar eclipse, you get 518, right? Which is May 18th. When Nineveh shall be overthrown, then you have the galvanization of the 144,000. And then, like I said, that's connected to the King Arthur movie that's connected to the Ides of March on 315, right? So like I said, I can't make none of this stuff up. All this stuff is connected, right? So now we're going to get back to the presentation. We're going to get back to the presentation because, like I said, they're going to propagate cosmic convergence through the unity consciousness of the 144,000. And they're actually going to be standing for matriarchal restoration. And the messianic figure, they don't want any type of associations with any type of governmental order. They don't want to deal with the socio-political aspect of civics. They don't want to work in tandem with any type of religious establishment that's coming from the deep state, right? So they're also going to propagate spirituality and not religion. And it's also going to be the messianic figure also is going to be talking about wanting the land back and not reparations, right? Because reparations is a form of technology. Because one thing you got to understand, reparations is connected to a misnomer title called Black or African American, which puts you right back under the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is a fraudulent contract because it was never ratified. So when you connect yourself to the concept of reparations, you are essentially calling yourself Black. When you call yourself Black, that connects you right back to the corporation, which is connected to you being a casualty of war. As I was showing you with the Beyonce picture, the casualty of war, which is why you got the yellow tassel under the flag, right? You added your sovereign capacity. You don't know who the fuck you are, right? When you don't know who you are, that means that you under the jurisdiction of under a false system, under a misnomer title. So you ask for the land back. You don't ask for reparations, because when you get the land back, that connects you to the Declaration of Human Rights that's connected to the Indigenous People Act, that's connected to the allodial title of the land, which is under a matriarch. Anything that's under a matriarch is under a republic. Anything that's under a republic is under the concept of nature under the sun cycle, right? So this is what they're doing. The Antichrist, he's going to implement lunar concepts under patriarchy as we're in the sun cycle. So that's how you know that anything that's connected to materialism is basically anything that's connected to materialism, anything that's connected to fortune or economic stimulation is a form of technology, because that shit don't even matter as we in the age of Aquarius, right? So that's how you know the messianic figure, they're going to be talking about wanting the land back. They don't want reparations. Reparations is technology. But they know due to the implications of Black people being, systematically oppressed under economic disenfranchisement, a lot of them going to fall victim to the reparations. They're going to take, if they giving out 500,000, a lot of them going to take that money. And that money is going to put you right back into their system. And that system is going to be under a totalitarian order, under a cybernetic dictatorship that is basically going to be governed and managed by the so-called Antichrist, right? So also the Messianic figure will actually come from the West, because America is the true Holy Land. Like I said, if Jerusalem was the true Holy Land, why are you getting the red heifers from America? Right? And then transporting them back to the fake Holy Land. Now, the attributes of the Antichrist, they will uphold patriarchy through false liberation under a one world order, right? So they're going to be talking about one world religion. They're going to be talking about one world currency, one world government. So it's not a coincidence that the BRICS nations have offered a alternative to the West, right? So like I said, all this stuff is going to be connected to the grid going down, because when the grid goes down, this is when they're going to launch this back up under a new world order system. So the Antichrist works in tandem with the United Nations for totalitarianism through a cybernetic dictatorship. The Antichrist will give the illusion of progressiveness with economic stimulation. So when the planet is in a state of destabilization, when the funds is basically extracted out, when you can't go to the bank and get money or whatever, this is where the Antichrist is going to come as a false messianic figure and give you some type of liberation. Oh, here's some care packages. We're going to give these care packages over here. We're going to stimulate, we're going to give these people some gold. We're going to give them this. We're going to give them that, because we all know, as I was telling you, according to the Canaanite culture, their God is the God of fortune. Anything that's dealing with fortune, anything that's dealing with materialism is connected to the lunar cycle, right? Which is based on the energy of the moon. Anything that's dealing with patriarchy, capitalism, things of that nature, is actually a form of technology and fallacy and deception. So now it says the Antichrist, he wants to be worshipped for his deeds, right? Oh, look what I did. I gave you guys reparations. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is also connected to the fact that the Antichrist will use celebrities and big influencers to back him, right? He's going to get the Jay-Z's, you know what I'm saying? He's going to get the P. Diddy's. He's going to get, the Cardi B's. He's going to get all the basketball players. He's going to get all the boule foot soldiers to back him, right? Because, one thing you got to understand about the harmonic convergence, as you got this new intelligence coming down to the planet through a cosmic radiation, what's happening is it's going to cause an awakening, but they need Black celebrities to rock you right back to sleep, right? They need Black political figures to rock you right back to sleep. And the Antichrist, he's going to use those boule foot soldiers as a way to rock you right back to sleep, to where you ask for reparations. Oh, you don't want to get this money. You don't want that bag. After what they did to you 400 years of slave, you don't want your reparations. That's what they're going to tell you. That's how they're going to get you in the form of technology, right? We don't want the land. You know what I'm saying? We don't want the money. We want the land, because the money doesn't have any type of intrinsic value. You had, 281 fiat currencies all around ancient history, and all of them failed, right? You had 200 plus fiat currencies all around civilization and history, and they all failed, right? So like I said, it's one of those things where, you got to be able to use your mental and your spiritual fortitude to understand what's going on, right? Because one thing, when it comes to people, and when it comes to prophecy and conspiracies and things of that nature, a lot of people, they have a lot of opinions about, what's taking place. But the problem is their opinions smell worse than they asshole, right? Because, if you can smell, if your eyes can smell, how would you speak about certain things? Yeah, that's what I was basically saying. If you could smell your eyes, what would you say? Right? If you could smell your eyes, what would you say? Because like I said, your opinion don't matter if you don't have the ability to see beyond the illusion, meaning that your opinion is not valid, right? So with that being said, like I said, they're going to use Black celebrities. They're going to use Black influencers. They're going to use, they're going to hit you every which way to get you to believe in the system, because they know that during this time period, the awakening process is going to dismantle everything in the material, right? So that's how they're going to try to get you. So like I said, the messianic figure, the true Messiah, it can be a man or a woman, right? Or it can be the convergence of the 144,000, right? The Antichrist is going to be connected to religion. It's going to be connected to, he's going to tell you to get the draconian juice. It's going to be all types of stuff. So that's why you got to be very meticulous. I'm going to come out with a video exposing the boule gatekeepers when you're talking about fraternities and sororities, because the great majority of political leaders of Black, especially the Black ones, a lot of them are connected to fraternities and sororities. I'm going to break that down soon, because that's going to be a key component as we going through this great awakening process, because that's how they're going to try to play fifth dimensional chess with us, right? Now, it says right here, verbatim, who are the Black 144,000 elect saints to collect their riches from the bank of heaven, right? Those are the people that were subjugated, right? So now, when you go to Genesis 15:13, Matthew 24:28, shall serve and be afflicted by the eagles. As I told you before, an eagle and a scorpion are basically one and the same, because the eagle is the personification of Babylonian culture. It's a personification of the Black nobility. It's a personification of everything that's connected to the regime of ancient Babylon. So shall serve and be afflicted by the eagles for 400 years. So when you take 144,000 divided by 360 days, you get 400 years. So the 144,000 was under subjugation for 400 years to the deep state shadow government, the Canaanite bloodline, the Black nobility, because like I said, we were under subjugation because we were under ecclesiastical law, which made us prisoners of war, right? Because that made us prisoners of war, because we were basically, when you're a prisoner of war, you don't know who you are. So when you don't know who you are, you're basically a guest on your own land, because you don't have the five divine laws which is love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, because you are ignorant to who you are, right? So it tells you right here, the children of, why does it keep doing it? The children of Lewis, who is basically the Messiah. In the land, when you see the word that in the Bible, it means Thoth. So the land of Thoth is not theirs. Shall serve them, the eagles, and the eagles shall afflict them for 400 years. America, the nation representing itself as the eagle, right? Because like I said, we are basically, we were basically civilly dead in the eyes of law, which puts you under the civil mortuus principles in the Black's Law Dictionary that's also connected to the 1724 Black Christian codes. So one thing you got to understand, when you call yourself a Christian, you are also calling yourself an Antichrist, because it's basically an anagram for the word Antichrist. When you look at the word Christian, you scramble up the words, you get Antichrist in there as also. And then you also go to the G3526 Strong Concordance. The word Christian translates to the word black. When you call yourself black, you are spiritually dead. No sovereign capacity. So that's why it says right here in 24:28 Matthews, carcass, right? Spiritually dead to the nation of eagles, America, right? So then you have the bridge room of the Son of Man and the Messiah sent in Malachi 4:5, right? So during the desolation process, during the great purification period of the abomination of desolation, right? What happens is you're going to have the Son of Man going to come. He's going to speak a certain truth. So this is where you're going to have the 12 pillars of lights in the skies, the appearance of the central sun, which is the black sun, with the 7 spiritual suns that's connected to the 7 thunders, Exodus to the pillars of light, and the righteous gather and the righteous remove. That's when you're going to have the great dreadful day, which is going to be the precursor to the 7 thunders that's connected to the 12 calamities, the 10 plagues, the spoiler, the fearful constellation, the destroyer, and the red star Katrina, and the dragon's tail, right? So this is all based on prophecy, right? So now, like I said, you've been warned. We've all been warned. There's going to be the Son of Man. There's going to be a prophet, whether if it's a man or a woman, and it's going to tell you about the implications for what is to come. They're going to be speaking a certain truth that everybody's not used to, and they're going to be castigated for it, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go over a rundown. I'm going to do a rundown real quick of everything that I did for those coming in, because we got to make it all make sense. So, one thing you got to understand is that, astronomy, historical context, biblical context, occult knowledge, science, genetics, biology, all this stuff works in tandem. Because anytime you see somebody that has a one-dimensional perspective when they speak in truth, that's the lie, that's false light. Because you got to understand a multitude of things through the science of circumology, meaning that you understand all perspectives to get one truth, right? So now, when you're talking about the Devil's Comet is going through Aries, which is Taleg, which is the embodiment of the Lamb. So the Devil's Comet is connected to the April 8th solar eclipse, because from September 23rd of 2017 all the way to April 8th, 2024 is 6 years, 6 months, and 6 days apart, which is equated to 666, right? So now you got to understand that the cosmic energy of the Devil's Comet is going through Aquarius also, and it's going at a velocity magnitude at 6.66. So this is also esoterically connected to Revelation 6:1. Now watch the Lamb open up from the 7 seals. So this Devil's Comet is actually going to be the beginning points of the 7th seal being open, where you're going to have the resurgence of the beholder, the white horse. The white horse, we just had Beyonce, right? Beyonce was the embodiment of the white horse, right? They use celebrities to propagate the symbolism for what is to come. Now, like I said, you also have the Devil's Comet. The Devil's Comet, which is discovered in 1812. Also in 1812, you had the activation of the New Madrid earthquake, which is where you're going to have the inception point of where the solar eclipse is going to be taking place on April 8th, 2024. So it's not a coincidence that all that stuff lines up together, because when you understand numbers and mathematical sequence, that is basically the language of the universe, right? So, like I said, the New Madrid fault line, the earthquake, was also during the time of 1812. 1812 is when you had the discovery of the Devil's Comet. Now, this is all connected to William Arthur Phillips Lewis, who is the Prince of Wales, who's coming from the royal family. They just put out a movie called The Arthur and the King on March 15th, which is connected to the Ides of March, right? The Ides of March is associated with misfortune and doom. Now, when you go to this Simpsons episode, it gives you 315, which is March 15th, which is connected to the Ides of March. Then you got May 18th, because as I was telling you before in the last video, May 18th is exactly 40 days from April 8th, 2024, because when you go to Jonah 3:4, it tells you that Nineveh shall be overthrown in 40 days, right? So 40 days from the solar eclipse on April 8th is May 18th. Then you got this Simpsons episode where you got 518, and then at the top you got the galvanization of the 144,000. So these new energies that's coming in from the solar eclipse is an energy that's going to cause activation. A lot of people are going to be turned on, right? So that's why I said, maybe if you don't feel like you're ready to look at the solar eclipse, maybe you should meditate and fast during the process of the solar eclipse. So during the process or leading up 2 weeks, a week before the solar eclipse, make sure you're doing a disciplinary fast. And then also you want to meditate. Meditate, like I said, ground yourself or whatever, put your feet in the dirt, meditate, and open yourself up to these new energies to where you can get this new cosmic radiation and intelligence coming from the sky. So now this is all connected to the Devil's Comet. When you do the Gematria Codex, the numerical value of the Devil's Comet is 1016. 1016 is equated to 10 days of darkness, and it's connected to Charles Philip Arthur George, which is connected to King Arthur, who is also known as the Prince of Wales, right? King Charles, right? Not a coincidence. So this is all connected to the blood moon of Purim. And then you have the Devil's Comet, resurging during the time of the solar eclipse. And then you got the Syndicus, which is basically another title for Locust, which is a prophetic event. Because when you see all this stuff is, like I said, it's a numerical sequence. It's all based on synchronization. So you have the return of the Syndicus from a 17-year cycle, right? And then you have the resurgence of the Devil's Comet after 71 years. So 17 and 71, that's a mirror flip. That's a colliding of dimensions. New heaven, new earth. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, right? Then you got to have volcano eruptions. These new energies is going to cause activations all around the planet, the seismic zone. And then, like I said, this is all connected to the red heifer, the resurgence of, the so-called Antichrist, as they do Canaanite rituals for the worship of Moloch, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I highly appreciate you guys for watching this video, because, the timeline of eschatology works in tandem with, the process of eschatology works in tandem with prophetic divination. Everything that's taking place right now is happening in divine order. Like I said, it's one of those things where you cannot castigate the Bible. The Bible is a esoteric codex talking about the ending of a certain demographic. So their Antichrist is actually going to save the system because the 6,000 years is up. Because I told you, according to the Freemasonic Apocryphal Bible of 1813, it tells you that the year 6,000 is in the year of 2024, right? So it's not a coincidence that you got the red heifer Shabbat ritual, you got the devil's comet, you got the lunar eclipse of the blood moon of Purim, then you got the solar eclipse, all this stuff, all these celestial events that's surrounding around prophecy, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's one of those things where you gotta find your galactical family. You know, find the people who you resonate with mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? So that's going to cause the harmonic convergence of the 144,000. A lot of us is going to be activated by these new energies that's coming in, which is a new form of intelligence that's coming in, right? So like I said, the war is not going to be won by way of physical destruction that's going to be propagated by humans or whatever. It's one of those things where you got to speak truth and you got to be operating from an energy of love that's activated by the heart chakra, right? Which is connected to the Sufi order of the Sons of Green Light. That green light is the ether. The ether works in tandem with the heart chakra. Because as I told you before, only words from the heart can reach the heart. So when you speak truth, the truth in itself has an octave vibration that amalgamates with the ethers by the way of magnetism that manipulates reality in the three-dimensional construct, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, speak truth. It ain't one of those things where you got to go march and all this stuff when the planet is in state of desolation or whatever. You can only fight this spiritual war with truth and love. That's the only way you can win. So there's not a coincidence that during this time period, you're going to have a Messianic figure, or whether it's a man or a woman, or if it's basically the 144,000. It's going to be one of those things where they're going to be speaking a certain truth that's basically going to manipulate the simulation, right? Because like I said, that cosmic intelligence is coming down from the solar eclipse, you know, the devil's comet, whatever, is going to cause an activation. Because you got two different timelines, right? Our timeline is based on something natural that's connected to nature. Everything that's connected to the timeline of the so-called Antichrist is based on materialism, right? They got to do sacrifices to create their Messiah. We become the Messianic figure by way of the intelligence that's coming in, that's coming from the magnetosphere, that's activating the magnetic field of the planet, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please get this video out there. This is a very important video because it basically correlates to the last video that I put out, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you can chop this video up, make it into a TikTok, so whatever, get the video out there, anything. If you want to break the video down in increments and put it out, you know, whatever. I just want the message to get out. That's all I want. So thanks for watching this video. End of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion. The selfish proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History, it's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.